Good evening, everybody. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. My name is Lawrence Searle, and I'm very excited to host the first webinar of our From Old to Bold webinar series. The monthly webinar program is designed to help physically and financially independent seniors to stay independent and thrive. And this evening, we're going to be focused on the topic of strategic fall prevention. So buckle up, and I hope you enjoyed today's presentation. As you know, falling at any age can be bad, but falling as a senior can often lead to horrific consequences. And most everybody out there has either been affected by a fall personally or knows someone who's been impacted by a fall. So today we're going to provide some actionable ideas to help you or perhaps a family member or maybe a friend to reduce the risk of falling, or better yet, maybe prevent a fall completely. We'll be recording the webinar so others who couldn't make it tonight could benefit from it later on and view it at their own schedule. So now I'd like to introduce my industry expert guest who will be joining us today, and you can see by this slide. First off, Susie Mayer, she's a care manager at Bayshore Home Health, and she was my first point of contact for this incredible organization. So Bayshore Health has been really instrumental in getting the resources together and helping me understand how important the subject is. And without her help, I couldn't have put this together and have put together such a great group of professionals. So thank you, Susie. And our main presenters tonight, Katie and Nancy, both are incredibly knowledgeable. They're leaders in their field and obviously very qualified. And so they'll be introducing themselves with their own experience shortly. But I just want to take a quick moment to highlight Nancy Olmstead's Olympic background, because it's not often I get to highlight an Olympian's background, but more importantly, personally, I'm in awe of the commitment it takes to be one of the best in the world for anything, never mind a sport. But secondly, I think there's a message here. Don't be afraid to at least try and emulate her incredible level of commitment to her goals. So if you can genuinely adapt an Olympian mentality and commitment to your fitness and your personal wellness and what we're talking about here, I believe your personal rewards will be amazing. So when you hear Nancy's voice, realize there's thousands of hours of commitment and hard work that got her where she is to get her to become an Olympian, and take full advantage of her resource as we're here. And without further ado, I'm going to pass you off to Katie.
Sure. Thanks, Lauren. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. We are extremely excited to have the opportunity to speak with you, and thrilled that you took an hour out of your night. Apparently, the Leafs game, I think, starts at 7:30ish, so we're going to try to be quick. But quick introductions from our end. I am an occupational therapist, and I have been working as an OT, or occupational therapist, for 21 years. And occupational therapists, for those of you who don't know, are people who help you with your day-to-day activities, help maximize independence with self-care, productivity, whether it's working or gardening or doing your housekeeping. We also look at leisure. And so our goal is to help you maintain your independence and be as functional as possible with your day-to-day activities. I am also lucky to be the director of our Bayshore Therapy and Rehab team in Canada, and responsible for overseeing hundreds of therapists across the country. Largely, my career has been looking at people who've been injured in accidents or have chronic illnesses, and also helping people age in place. That's a hot topic right now. And so we're just, again, thrilled for the opportunity. And I'm going to pass it off to Nancy Olmstead, who is one of our amazing physiotherapists, and Lauren's already sung her praises. It's not often you have a two-time Olympian on your team, and Nancy's a good friend and colleague of mine and super knowledgeable. So I'll pass to Nancy.
Thanks for those welcome and warm introductions. Been a physiotherapist for 25 years, so I got a couple of years on Katie by the looks of it. And I'm a physiotherapist, and we do similar things. I think a physiotherapist, well, actually in university, we always teased my colleagues because we always said the OTs like to cook and the physios like to eat. So it was always that thing. We always had this symbiotic relationship, but physio tends to be a little bit more on the functional activity point of view and exercises. Although OTs do the same, but we really try to keep you independent by doing exercises. And I'm usually a little drill sergeant and try to keep people going. So probably that stems a little bit back from my commitment to sport from many years ago. And I was fortunate to participate in 2 Olympic Games with my sister. So, it started a career as an athlete, and it's made me who I am today. I'm very committed, very dedicated, and I still like to stay active, although albeit a little bit less. So there we go. We'll let Katie continue on with the show.
Yeah, when Nancy says a little bit less, she was out and she said, I'm just going to go for a quick Nordic ski, Katie, on Sunday. And she said, my goal is 10 kilometers. And honestly, I'm not sure about you guys, but I was thinking like maybe I'll get in a 30-minute walk. And she kind of came back and said, well, I got 11 kilometers. And she motivated me to get out the door. So I did 45 minutes of walking. So you want to have Nancy as your friend. Thanks, Nancy. And I would like to also pass the floor to Susie to introduce herself from our home health team.
Thank you, Katie. My name's Susie Meyer, and I also have my colleague Diana Gershon with us. And we are the care managers for Bayshore Home Health, so the first and main point of contact for current and future clients. And Bayshore Home Health provides private in-home care services, as well as we work with all the major insurance providers. And thanks again for Lauren for setting this up. I'm really glad we've been able to partner together.
Thank you, Susie. So today we're going to talk about sedentary risk factors. Is sitting the new smoking? Falls risk factors. And if you fall, what are those impacts? Falls prevention. So how do we fix those alarming statistics? And I will pass it off to Nancy at that time to talk about life hacks and quick wins, and she'll explain exactly what those are. And then talking about physical activity to live our best lives. So please sit back and relax, and feel free to use the Q&A question and answer button at the bottom if you have any questions, and hopefully we have some time at the end. So sedentary risk factors, is sitting the new smoking? Yes, it is. And if we look at the statistics, they're rather alarming. The average person sits 12 hours a day. Physical inactivity is the fourth leading risk factor for global mortality. There are 3.2 million deaths per year related to physical inactivity. When I look at these, it scares me because think about your own life. How many people are sitting at least 12 hours a day, especially in the pandemic? I am one of those people. I have a very sedentary job, and I have to tell you, I have to actively think about stretching, moving, walking, maybe going for a walk at lunch, and Nancy's a great motivator. Sometimes I'm sitting for 6 hours in a row and I'm so sore and I don't even realize it. So you really have to be mindful of sitting and thinking about that as the new smoking. It's very dangerous with all those physical activity having such a big impact. What I want to do is challenge you throughout this presentation, if you're safe to do so, to make it an immediate change. So if you're able to stand for part of the presentation, you're lucky you're not on video, you can stretch, move around, maybe wiggle your feet, do some shoulder rolls backwards and get the blood flowing. And that will be an immediate change that you can make tonight. Let's talk about falls facts. These are also miserable facts, and we know it's bad, but how bad is it? It's pretty bad. 20 to 30% of seniors experience one or more falls each year. Think about that. That is 25 to 30% of us on the call. We know that falls increase with age, especially after 80 years old. And this one's quite alarming to me. Falls are the leading cause of injury amongst older adults and the leading cause of hospitalization in Canada. So if you're not wanting to fall, or if you were worried about falling, we need to really look at these statistics and look at how we can change that. 95% of all hip fractures are due to falls. So I certainly, as an occupational therapist, have worked with many people who have had hip fractures. And if you and your family have been fortunate enough to never have one, believe me, you don't want one. So hopefully the motivation tonight is about let's not fall, and we can hopefully reverse these statistics. When we look at falls risk factors, there are multiple risk factors. We've included just a snippet here today, but something you can think about your own life and your own abilities, and think about, or if you're caring for an older adult yourself, your parents, do they have impaired vision, or hearing? If you obviously can't see something, you might run into something in the house. How is the blood pressure? Is it high? Is it low? Are there any side effects like dizziness? Cognitive impairments. If you are disoriented, for example, you might miss a step. You might forget which door you're opening and fall down the basement steps. Physical inactivity is a big one. We're going to talk about that a lot tonight. We've already mentioned it. So this is a huge falls risk factor if you're not active and you're sedentary. Poor diet. We know that poor diet can lead to chronic health conditions such as diabetes, being overweight, and these can also impact your risk of falls. Medications. This is a big one, and the more medications you're on, sometimes they interact. So it's something to keep in mind that perhaps some of your symptoms might be due to medications you're taking. Improper footwear. I've had so many clients, and I'm sure Nancy can relate to this, who are wearing flip-flops and tripping over their own shoes when we come into the home. And a quick fix is to actually recommend them wearing proper footwear, proper running shoes, or walking shoes. Inclement weather. Does anyone remember the storm of 1977? I felt like Monday might have been that same storm, and we haven't seen that much snowfall, and certainly I haven't in many years that I can recall. And so it's really important to look outside, make sure you have salt or sand put down, you have someone who can help you shovel the driveway or snowplow. Ice is so dangerous. I'm not sure, has anyone ever fallen due to ice? I have multiple times. I remember once opening the door and it was sheer ice, and I mentally told myself, don't step on that, Katie. You're going to slip and fall. Be very careful. I had running shoes on. So I had good footwear. I slipped and I wiped out, hit my head, went down 3 steps, and it took me about 10 minutes to come back into the house. And so you don't want that to be you. Trust me, that was not a fun recovery. And it can be very dangerous. Social support or lack of social support can be a big falls risk factor because you tend to be more sedentary when you're not going out. Overestimating your ability. So think back to any age time in your life, and have you ever thought, oh yeah, I can still rock climb, I can still be an Olympian? And maybe you can, maybe Nancy can, but often we overestimate our ability. So you really want to be mindful of where you're at today, not where you were at in your 20s. And maybe you are healthier and that's great, but really look at what are your current abilities and what you should be extra careful of. And finally, acute illnesses and health conditions. These, of course, are ones that are obvious, but you might have an acute urinary tract infection that can cause you to be dizzy or fatigued, and health conditions. My father-in-law, who has passed, had Parkinson's disease, and that had a significant impact on his life and his falls risk, and he had a few falls, but his wife, who's my mother-in-law, is also a physiotherapist. So together, between the OT and the PT, we were able to put a lot of things in place to help prevent falls, railings, grab bars, proper footwear, removing scatter rugs, all sorts of things that really reduce his risk of falls. So we talked about a lot of falls risk, but when we look at one of the biggest risk factors is actually the fear of falling. And it's a domino effect, and lots of people are fearful of falling. It's very common. But simply being afraid of falls can increase your risk significantly of falling. And when you're afraid, that often leads to decreased activity. You don't want to leave the house. You're scared you're going to fall. It's easier to stay sedentary and stay inside. But when you're not active and not leaving the house, that leads to social isolation. And when you combine those two things together, that significantly increases your risk of falls. So if you think about yourself and just ask yourself right now, how many people are afraid of falling? Have you ever had a fall? Are your parents afraid of falling? And this is something we can make, again, a quick win. A change right now is to try to change that fear into something positive. And what can we do to prevent falls? Before we talk about prevention, there's one last slide here that talks about the impact of falls. And there may be more at stake than you realize. When we look at hospitalization, the average hospital stay after you have a fall is 3 weeks. I don't know about you guys, but I really dislike hospitals. I'm sure most people do. And I can't imagine being in there for 3 weeks due to a silly fall that I could have prevented. So you want to stay out of the hospital and you want to prevent that fall. Serious injury. Obviously, this is a big one. And we know that 20% of falls can cause serious injury. It could be a fracture, broken bones, or even a head injury if you hit your head hard. Family upheaval. This is one that I know Nancy can relate to. One of my very close friends here, who's a neuropsychologist, just went through this with her mom. And it's worrisome about your parents or your friends when you need to pick up and move, maybe even move in with them or have them come stay with you. And it can be a lot of stress on the children and the grandchildren as well. Independence. So we all value our independence, and it's not until you lose it that you really realize how important it is. And again, overall wellness. So if you look at these lovely ladies in the picture here who are on a beach looking where we all want to be right now, if you're in the hospital for 3 weeks, you can't be with the ladies. So keep that in mind, and you want to live your best life. And of course, death. This is really concerning. If you fall, you can die. If you have multiple falls, you can have huge injuries that can lead to death. We know that in the United States, the falls death rates increased 30% from 2007 to 2016. And if these rates continue to rise, we can anticipate 7 falls deaths every hour by 2030. That's 7 falls deaths every hour by 2030. That's really scary. And it's something that we can actually work towards preventing. So that's what my next slide is. The good news is, great news, falls are preventable. So all the doom and gloom is over. We're going to talk about prevention strategies. So these are some really quick fixes, again, quick wins that you can do yourself in your home environment. So think about your own house. Maybe you have a cottage as well. Think about houses where you go visit to your families. And these are really quick fixes that you can do, and occupational therapists frequently recommend it. It's amazing to me how many of my clients haven't done this, and it's a quick fix and they're feeling way better and less fearful of falling. Remove scatter rugs. Tape down cords that are in your walking pathways. We live in an age of technology. We have a lot of cords. So tie them up, put those little plastic thingamajigs, whatever they're called, around, and keep them out of the way. I'm assuming some people here have pets. I have 2 pesky cats that you might hear in the background shortly. They know when I come home from work and they want attention immediately. They also like to walk right in front of me. And I think Lauren can relate with his cats. We don't have kids, so we spoil our cats way too much, and they have an offering of 12 different bowls of food, and they are healthy foods, but much to my husband's chagrin, I have 12 bowls out. So you want to make sure you're clearing the bowls. They're not in your walking space, that you're not tripping on them. Adequate lighting. So if you get up at night to maybe use the bathroom, put a couple of night lights up. If you're walking at night, put some motion sensor lights outside your house so you always have a light on. Excuse me. As occupational therapists, one of the most common items that I recommend are railings and grab bars. And these are simple things that you can do yourself if you have a handy person in your home, or you can have an occupational therapist come over and help put these up for you. And these are simple things we did for my father-in-law, really important falls prevention measures that you can put inside your tub, your shower, next to your toilet, in your bedroom, railings inside and outside the house. They can look decorative. They don't have to be the old-fashioned chrome ones. You can get white ones. The chrome are nice too. So just keep that in mind. It's an option. And again, clearing ice and snow, when we talk about we've already talked about that. Hopefully nobody had a fall on Monday and everybody's safe. And eating a healthy diet. So again, we know that diet can impact our medical health. So you really want to keep that in mind and live your best life. And then in addition to the environment, there are some other strategies that you can implement already purposefully right now. If you're not feeling well, if you're fearful of falling, maybe you've had a near miss, like you've almost fallen, or you have fallen, or your parents are in the same boat, talk to your doctor, talk to your pharmacist, do a medication review. It's really important, and maybe there's a quick fix that they can do. Maybe change your medication so that you're not feeling as dizzy or fatigued. Check your vision and hearing. Again, a quick fix. Go in, meet your optometrist. Maybe it's a change in your prescription. Eat your healthy diet. Make sure you have an emergency contact list so that you have a list upstairs, downstairs, in your car, wherever you're going to be. And again, exercise regularly. Use daily activities. This is, as an occupational therapist, near and dear to my heart, because that's what I do with my clients. We don't necessarily do what the physios do, but we look to day-to-day activities like laundry, cooking, doing lawn care, shoveling snow, things that incorporate exercise, but you're actually getting a job done at the same time. It's kind of a quick win, in my opinion. I love the fact that if I go out and shovel snow, I might be tired, but I got my exercise and my driveway's clear. So look for those quick wins. And you can have a physiotherapist program. You can, if you want to be preventative, maybe you're super active, maybe you're like Nancy and you are an Olympian, or you can ski for 11 kilometers. That's fantastic. But consider a preventative approach, a personal trainer, a physiotherapist, either prevention or post-injury. If you do have a fall, physiotherapists can be instrumental. I just want to share with you one quick story before I pass it to Nancy, just to as we look into physical activity and feeling motivated, as an occupational therapist, I worked with thousands of clients over my career, and one person really stands out. And I remember receiving a referral for a gentleman in his 50s, excuse me, who had been diagnosed sadly with brain cancer. And the referral simply said, I want you to do a bicycle assessment. And I said, like usually you want to do a home safety assessment. Yeah, maybe like an activities of daily living assessment, but I'd never been asked to do a bicycle assessment. Luckily, I can ride. And so when I called him, he said, I don't think I need an occupational therapist. I can bathe myself. I can groom myself. I said, well, the referral is actually for a bike assessment. And it turns out he had a quite a serious visual impairment called Hemianopsia. So he could not see out of the left side of both eyes. So if you can imagine, he had to scan constantly to look in his environment or he'd bump into things. So it started off me gaining his trust and working with him on strategies for vision, scanning his cognitive strategies. But he was so eager to get out and bike. And, you know, it's risky as an OT to say, yeah, you can bike when I'm thinking he's going to run into things. But at the same time, I'm a bit of a risk taker. And I thought, who am I to say this man has cancer? And I don't want to take the one thing that he loves to do the most. And keep in mind, this guy would walk every day for miles and miles, and he'd bike every day. Everybody knew him in the environment. He'd stop by Tim Hortons, get his coffee, and, you know, he was quite well at the time. And through my course of working with him, he outlived his prognosis by 6 or 7 years. He was phenomenal. He was motivated. He wouldn't take no for an answer. We worked on safety tips. It took me about probably 8 months to do the bike assessment with him because he wasn't ready at first. And I climbed on his wife's bike and he toured me around his hometown, showed me the house he grew up in. He was safe as safe can be at that time. He was putting on his best behavior. But I will add, he was a bit cheeky. And through working with him, when I'd come over, I could just tell by his grin that maybe something happened or came close to happening. And that's a fond memory for me. I'd say, you know, Mike, what happened? He's like, well, nothing. You know, I almost like flew over a car, but I didn't. Or I did kind of get nipped by the pole, but I'm okay, you know. And so I was very motivated by his story. And I think it's just encouraging to think about people who persevere and who work hard, and you can achieve the best outcomes and exceed expectations. And I'm sure Nancy can relate to that as an Olympian. And then just finally, home safety assessment. Again, you can make quick fixes to your environment now, but if you feel you need a more in-depth assessment or home accessibility assessment, please don't hesitate to contact us. We do these every day, and it could be a big difference maker for you in terms of setting yourself up for success and preventing falls. So now I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Nancy, who's going to talk to you about life hacks, which is a really cool term, and quick wins. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Katie. That was
Thanks,
just
Katie.
great, and great information, and definitely food for thought for all of you. I think there's a lot of valuable pointers and tips and things that you can do. And the way I look at falls is they can really be preventable. And that's what Katie showed us tonight in her presentation. And so from a physio point of view, you know, I'm more in the activity part of it. And it's important that you look at, as a physiotherapist, I try to encourage people to set goals, to make a plan, to remain active, to keep fit, and get motivated to get started. So hopefully tonight will motivate you to get started. So I really like this term life hacks. And this actually was triggered by Lauren's idea. I love this because it's really a clever trick or a shortcut, very catchy, you know, to make life easier. And it gives you strategies or makes a task that could be more efficient. And it's sort of like our own DIY project. So you look at it as a little nugget or a new little habit that you can form. Interestingly enough, it takes about 3 weeks to start forming a habit. So, you know, even if you start today and you miss a day, don't worry, because it's going to take a while to get into that habit. So, but it actually solidifies in about 66 days, according to the literature. So it's really important because life hacks can be some real game changers for you, for any of you. And it can be small steps. It doesn't need to be big. So it's getting out and going for 5 minutes of walking. And the other idea I have is I'm waiting for my coffee to percolate in the morning. I'm doing my little knee bends, holding onto the counter because there's some safety involved. Or you could be doing some little squats while you're in the kitchen. The other idea you can do is you can do push-ups on the counter, and it's great because you're getting your arms involved. So there's little things that you can do to make a new habit. So when you look at the next slide is the purposeful exercise. And we like to look at purposeful activity and purposeful exercise. So I'm the type of person, of course, I'm a bit competitive, bit competitive, a little bit, serious, but sometimes what I like to do is I don't really like to just go for a walk. I like to go for a walk and take my dog. So those are some of the things that I do is I like to do dual purpose. So I look at, if I want to clean my garage, you're going to clean up the garage and donate items. Or I spoke a little bit earlier about doing squats while you're waiting for your food to be cooked. When I'm walking too, I like to be really mindful. It's really snowy out there. We got the dump of snow now in North Bay versus Toronto just got it a few days ago. So you really want to be mindful where you're stepping because it could be a little bit slippery. But not only that, I start to get a little competitive and I go, okay, well, I went down to 3 telephone poles today with the dogs. Okay, well, maybe tomorrow I'm going to do 4 telephone poles. So I'm always counting the distance. I always like to sort of keep myself competitive. The other thing I do, I don't know if anyone's heard of the Strava app, but it's a little app on my phone and I can say whether I'm doing walking or Nordic skiing or weights or paddling. And what I like about that is I have a bunch of friends. And so they can always tell if I'm being active or not. And you always get what we call kudos. So it's a little bit of positive reinforcement and it's recording it and your friends get to see it virtually, of course. So those are little things you can do. Perhaps a little Fitbit would help too to keep you going and it keeps you motivated. It's sort of self-intrinsic motivation. The other 2 things that I wanted to mention about these purposeful exercises, I really like the Nordic Poles for any age because you're using your upper extremity and you're using your lower extremity, plus you're encouraging a little bit of balance. So I really like them as an alternative way to walk. And the other thing I love is thinking about planting a vegetable garden. And a vegetable garden is awesome in the summer because not only are you getting fresh vegetables or fresh herbs to eat, you're getting activity. And gardening is actually a simple way to be active. And you can do it long into your late 70s and 80s safely. So those are a couple of things. The next thing I like to look at is the quick wins. And as I mentioned that I'm obviously a little bit competitive and it's really hard to turn the off switch, which is difficult. But I like quick wins because it's like a symbiotic relationship with Lifehacks. So once you get yourself into routine, slow and steady wins the race. Be mindful of your body changes. That's the hard part because Katie mentioned we often can overestimate our abilities and it's really difficult when you used to go really fast and now you can't go so fast or now you can't do as much. And that's okay because I don't care if you do 1 pound weights, you're doing something. So I look at it, it doesn't matter how much you do. The most important thing is to try. So interesting story is I've moved back to North Bay temporarily or probably permanently now because I've been looking after my elderly father. And he's 93. And so what I noticed is because I wanted it to be a win-win, quick win, not only was I helping to keep him independent and safe in his home, I decided to return to paddling. And what was great about that is it was hard to get back into it, but it gave me the opportunity to get back into the sport that I love because we live on the water in North Bay. So it started me back and I started to do master's level competition. And so I'm really proud of all the work that I did for my dad and I've helped him tremendously to remain independent in his home with grab bars and handrails and walkers. I had to put racing stripes on it because he really didn't want to use his walker, those kinds of things. So the most important thing is I encouraged him to believe in himself. Now, he's obviously much older than many of you, but we incorporated the activity into life and made it fun. So those were a couple of ideas I had. Well, and we're challenging you today. And this is a picture of an 84-year-old who decided he wanted to start biking. He hadn't biked in a long time. And of course, he didn't want to use a woman's bike because, that wouldn't look good as a guy. So then we went and tried bikes and we realized that we had to do the fancy bike with the training reels. And that allowed him to go biking because he wasn't able to balance with the 2 wheels. And that's okay. And so this gentleman is actually my father and biked for 3 summers before he was unable to do so. And he had his dog because he couldn't tire his dog out. So his dog was running back and forth and back and forth. So it was a quick win on 2 occasions, tiring his dog out and getting exercise. So the real point is be bold, start with one life hack a day, challenge yourself to do more, look for those little quick wins, start today. And it's, as I said, it's never too late. And what happened with him is that, as he got into his 90s, he realized that his infirmities and limitations and physical limitations were getting the better of him. So he started baking bread. So the good thing about that is he packed away his bike, and he started to make bread. And the other thing he did is he used the little mini peddler that you can put on the floor. So it's simple things. He realized he couldn't do what he used to do. So it's recognizing your limitations, which is hard. And he got into making bread and has perfected the art of making bread. And recently, as of last year, actually it's now the year before now, it's going quickly, isn't it? We had a competition with the Canoe Kayak Ontario. And he said to me, I want to participate and support the North Bay Canoe Club. So he tried to walk in his house with his walker. And it took him the whole month to try and get close to 8 kilometers, but he got a point for the canoe club. The point is, he was motivated, and he motivated us as children. There were 4 kids in the family. And I thought it was quite a appropriate story to tell you because he was thriving despite his limitations. And really, the most important thing is to persevere and to try. You don't have to be number one. It doesn't matter. I was not always number one, and I lost many races, but the point is I never quit. And I think that's the most important thing. Just try. And it's fun, getting a little exercise, getting out. I got out before this meeting tonight, and I went and did the snow shoveling. So getting active. So it's just make it fun, make it personable. Bayshore provides a very interdisciplinary approach to care, and it really will help you to access safety. Katie obviously does safety and assessments in the home, which is very valuable, and she can provide education and programs to help reduce falls. And I would be more on the end as a physiotherapist, would develop exercise programs to help maintain that strength. A really interesting point is you think of someone who's over 80 years of age, it's almost 80% of your strength to get from sitting to standing. That's how much effort is versus a 20-year-old that's probably 25% of their maximal strength. So very important to stay strong. Bayshore has over 1,000 therapists across Canada, and they offer both virtual and in-person care depending on your comfort. So it's great, to have such a comprehensive team. And Susie's going to talk a little bit more about the other services they have to offer.
Sure. Thanks, Nancy.
All right, Susie.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
Oh, I'm trying to get that little thing off. Go ahead.
So at Bayshore Home Health, we work hand in hand with the OT and PTs in Bayshore Rehab, and we can assist with a lot of these mobility and exercise programs that are assigned, whether it's by your personal trainer or our OT or our PT. Bayshore Home Health can provide personal care and companionship services, so including range of motion exercises, which are exercises that are prescribed by either an OT or a PT. We can also assist clients to go for a walk, whether it's indoors or outdoors. We can ensure their home is safe for them to mobilize in. So whether it's looking at loose rugs or any clutter, we do a risk assessment. For those clients that need a little bit more assistance, we can assist them to move safely in terms of transfers to chairs, to beds, in and out of vehicles, up the stairs and into bathtubs. We also have many clients utilizing our escorting option for going to appointments safely. This includes assistance with getting in and out of the car, going to the appointment, and coming home safely. So Bayshore is all about safety and ensuring that you can live at home for as long as possible. And for any inquiries regarding our rehab, OT, PT, and personal care services, please connect with us at the 416 number just at the top there, and we will put you in touch with the right people.
I do see one question in the chat, and I can I think it went to everybody. And the question is, do you have a suggestion for footwear for elderly in their homes? I'm going to pass that to Nancy.
Well, sometimes it can be a bit of both. I usually like to make sure if you have a slipper that it has a heel, not an open back slipper, but I would prefer wearing a running shoe.
Yeah, certainly there's different like something with support with good treads so you're not going to slip. But sometimes the treads can actually be too hard and you get the rubber grip on the floor. So it depends on your flooring as well. What we don't advise are like the loose flip-flops and things that are maybe loose on your feet. Again, because they shockingly can be tripping hazards. I trip all the time. I'm very klutzy. So there they go, Nancy.
Yeah, and what I like about these is I've recommend it to various patients because it's stretchy. So if you have any inflammation at the end of the night for your feet, it accommodates it. They're really lightweight. And the other thing that's important is the tip of the toe is not too thick, because if it's too thick, it's a tripping hazard. They're really lightweight and you can wash them, which is awesome. They're called Skechers and they can get them at Sport Check. So I really like them. They're great in the house. In the house. So quite a handy.
Yeah.
They wear well and they've got a good tread. So it's good.
You can also, for outdoors, get those rubber attachments that go over your boots or your running shoes with this metal spikes in them. I really like those, especially if you have Nordic poles or walking sticks to walk with. They definitely give you more traction. It's kind of like putting winter tires on your shoes. They look kind of funny. My husband refuses to wear them, but my dad has them and he likes them. So take a look at those. You can get them in most of the footwear stores or even Canadian Tires.
Good questions.
And if you think of any further questions, you can reach out to us later. So thanks and good night, and I'll just sign us off here. Take care and stay bold.
Stay bold.